Okay, so wasn't Critter lucky to get out of that one unscathed. Game 2 was a draw. Let's get into it, shall we? So d4, d5, c4, c6, knight c3, knight f6, e3. Other options here are, of course, knight f3, knight f3 here. Yes, knight f3 is another option, and that's the main move actually. And also bishop g5, bishop f4 type stuff is also possible, and exchanging is possible, of course. But yeah, e3. E3 is just creates a pawn chain, protects this pawn here, makes sure there's no d takes c4 lines, and so it's not too bad. A6 is Shevchenko line, I think it's called. Black wants to just go a6 and b5 and create something on the queen side straight away. And this is a reasonable option against this early e3. Another option was playing a g6 line as well, which I think Kempsky has played a bit in practice. Anyway, so knight f3, b5, b3, bishop g4. These are all fairly logical moves, right? Bishop e2, breaking the pin, e6, and bishop b2 is not a bad move. In this position, Topalov, for one person in 2009, played 8-3 against Wang Yue, the Chinese player, and that only ended in a draw. And some other guys have played it as well. I'm not sure if bishop b2 straight away is better than playing h3. Maybe it is. Yeah, who knows the difference? h3, I guess, puts the question to the bishop. Ask him if he wants to give you the two bishops, the bishop pair. But bishop b2 is a little bit less fussing around, just saying, okay, I want to, finish my development quietly and aim for a good position. And now Critter plays a novelty here, b takes c4. And this, like, if we look at Stockfish, he doesn't really like that move, right? It jumps up to 5 center pawns or whatever, half a pawn of advantage for white straight away. And generally speaking, breaking the tension is not between pawns is not so great. I think Stockfish's issue here is that after b takes, firstly, white is more likely to get to the open file first, and also the queen has some possibilities here, and also I think black's queenside pawns are a little bit weaker than white's as well, so Stockfish was not so happy about taking there. So anyway, knight b7, c5, rook b8, just attacking this bishop here, rook b1, and bishop e7. This is bishop e7 is a clever little move. It seems like he's just leaving his pawn hanging over here and saying, oh, I'm just going to complete my development, take the pawn if you want. But taking the pawn on a6, took me a second to see this during the game, you might remember. If you take the pawn here, it's a bit greedy because queen a5 is a double attack on this and on this. So after you save the bishop, then white will remove the defender of the knight. And white just won two minor pieces for an exchange for a rook, and it's better for black. And that's why white didn't take that pawn. He just played bishop a1. Rooks were exchanged, and I was predicting a draw around here already, just because the pawn structure is completely symmetrical. White has a little bit of a space advantage on the queen side, but that's nothing substantial. Black's probably going to castle castle and put a rook on b8. That's what I was expecting, and doesn't look like there's a lot happening there. So white plays queen c2, just sort of preempting that something, the black rook will come to the b file eventually. Castles, rook b8 as expected. These were all pretty logical moves. Knight e1. This is quite a Karpovian sort of idea. There's a lot of moves you can play here. Stockfish wants to play h3, which is logical. Queen a4 is also pretty logical, just bearing down on some of these weak pawns here. That's completely logical. Only Karpov would play a strange move like knight e1, right? With the idea of just swapping and maneuvering the knights to some good squares, playing f3 and e4, and just maneuvering around in the center while you might see the black controls the open b file, but when somebody controls a file but there's no entry points, which means he can't enter on the 7th rank or the back rank or almost anywhere, and so controlling this open file doesn't really mean that much, whereas Karpov's plan will be to play f3 and e4 and expand in the center. So this knight e1 move is it sort of reveals sort of human-like planning, right? Knight e1, the exchange, and now Karpov wants to play, as I said, knight d3 and play f3 and e4 and start opening up the center. And so what would eventually happen in that scenario is Karpov would open a file in the center for his rook, and meanwhile black's rook would still be on that inaccessible b file. Anyway, so black played queen b7. So it looks pretty good having these guys on the open file, but they still can't enter anywhere, can they? So it looks good, and maybe it's useful at some point, but it's not so great immediately. And that's why Stockfish suddenly, after Karpov's next move, f3, okay, f3 is what Karpov played. He could have also played knight d3 first. I don't think there's a difference. Yeah. Now Stockfish has realized that there's no difference really. f3 followed by knight d3. Okay, Karpov plays some waiting moves first. Knight d3. And why has the evaluation changed there? Stockfish not a fan of this queen c1 move. Yeah, I was kind of perplexed by this move myself. Anyway, so g6, knight d3, bishop g5. This is that's a funny looking move, right? Because Karpov wants to prepare e4, and so Critter just pins the e pawn and says, no, you're not moving that. So bishop c3, that's good. Just get the bishop out of the back rank. Knight g7. And I kind of like the Stockfish move here. I was looking at it before. Black plays this retreat move, knight here, because he wants to play knight f5 and put more pressure on the e-pawn. So Stockfish wants to just play g4. And Stockfish says that this is just an advantage for white, because now this knight, even though he went backwards, he has nowhere to really go. So I kind of like that g4 idea. It does move a pawn in front of your king, but black can't really exploit it yet. What was Stockfish's move here? f4, or queen d2 first, yeah? Queen d2, h5, or knight f5, sorry. And now, yes, there was two options to defend this e-pawn here. One is to just block by putting a knight here, and the other is to play f4. Stockfish chose f4, bishop e7. And some players might sort of say that black has... I mean, optically, you might argue that black has a better position because he has the quote-unquote good bishop, because his bishop isn't blocked by his pawn chain, right? And he controls the only open file. This is like some strategy we learn quite early in the piece. But there are, and so you might also be perplexed. Why does Stockfish prefer white? And this is because a bishop does not make a whole position. I remember when I was a bit weaker, one of my friends, I was assessing a position in a similar way, and one of my friends said a bishop doesn't make a whole position. This is a very strong friend of mine. Says a bishop doesn't make a whole position. The bishop on c3 doesn't mean that much. And can you really say that this bishop is worse than this one if the one on e7 doesn't have any targets anyway? It's blocked by white's pawn wall. And can you really say that this control of the b file is so valuable when there's nowhere to enter? Or isn't it just looking pretty but has no function? And this is kind of true as well. Whereas Karpov's plan, starting from the next move, g4, and we see Stockfish starts to prefer white, g4 starts to expand on the king side and gain even more space. He has space on the queen side, now he's going to gain space on the king side. g4, knight g7, bishop a5. That's a nice move as well. His so-called bad bishop, he's just going to place it over here and just control some useful squares here. If black isn't careful, he's going to plug it into this b6 square or the c7 square and come around maybe even. So the bishop won't be so bad after all very soon. Bishop a5. Stockfish prefer h3 there, but bishop a5, knight f6. And this is a nice little tactical response. It threatens here and this square at the same time, but Karpov has it all covered with knight f2. What was he expecting there? h3, allowing knight e4. That's something only Stockfish would do because he's calculated to the end of the line. Karpov guards both. h5, h3, hg, hg, queen c8. He's realized that there's not much happening on the c file, so he starts to bring his queen over the other side. g5. And this is where it starts to get a bit crazy. If this was me in this position, I would probably play, let's see, Stockfish laugh at me, I'd probably play king g2. Yeah, it's not too bad. King g2 has a tactical point. Okay, in a long game I probably wouldn't. That's the idea of this. Yes, I remember thinking about this during the game. Yes. Okay, so you can play e5, and there's a discovery on that g pawn. So maybe you can't do that. Maybe that's why he went g5 straight away. Stockfish wants to play knight g3, allowing e5, but as we've seen, Karpov tries to prevent your play. He wants to prevent e5 because he thinks that might free white a little bit. So he plays g5 himself. g5, knight f h5, knight d3, and so Karpov is going to maneuver for this e5 square, if he can get there. Knight d3. And this is an interesting position. This knight d3 here, and Stockfish starts going crazy and says that black is clearly better, almost winning after the move f6. Isn't that interesting? So how does he just go to being instantly much worse after f6? f6? Okay, you've got to take that. Takes. So, maybe Stockfish is starting to change his mind a little bit here. Knight e5. Okay, let's do that. Knight f5. Okay, knight f3. Yeah, black's minor pieces look pretty good there. Rook b7 is a very nice move. Rook b7 with the idea of rook g7 and g5 trying to attack the white king. Yeah, white's king gets in a little bit of trouble there probably. So what's queen d3? Why is that so good? Rook g7 and then what? Oh, king f2, g5. Knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes. Is the danger passing? Now I'm really starting to think white's bishop isn't very good, unless he can shuffle it over to e5 or somewhere. Stockfish thinks black's only slightly better here, so he's changed his mind a little bit. He's saying just king e1 running away is fine for white. Materials equal. Yeah, black's slightly better because white's bishop isn't very good, but yeah, that's an interesting line. So f6 there was probably Kritter's best chance in this game, we would say, right? What did he play instead? Knight d3, knight f5 instead. Bishop b6, a nice move, blocking the b file, but still allowing that f6 idea we've seen before. Okay, so he missed, and Krita missed f6 twice. Bishop f8 instead, and king f2, bishop g7, g1. So both sides are. Stockfish hasn't seen the idea. That's kind of, I mean, Krita didn't see the idea of f6 followed by g5 with some attacking ideas. That's actually a very sophisticated idea by the strongest engine in the world. So yeah, we can trust Krita for. We can forgive Krita for not seeing it. Okay, yeah, this position here, where Karpov went queen a5 and started doing some weird sorties on the queen side. I was a little bit worried about that because he's taking his queen quite far away from the king side while there's quite some pieces on the king side. What does Stockfish want to do? Stockfish wants to transfer the white knight to f3, possibly to preempt those f6 ideas, and then play a4 and play on the queen side. Okay. Okay, so queen a5, f6, and so Krita found this f6 idea finally. Takes, rook h1, mistake apparently. Knight e5, still the best move. Rook h1, bishop check. This position is very complicated that even Stockfish is changing his mind often. King f3, g5. That's a slight mistake. Takes, queen g8. Queen g8's a nice move. So this temporary pawn sack, just trying to feed pieces over to where the white king is, looks pretty good. So bishop c7. Finally, he gets to bring his bishop to the king side. Rook b5. During the game, I thought rook f8. Do you remember? I thought rook f8 was good, but I missed this pretty obvious move. You just block the f file like this, and it's okay for white. Queen g6 looks like a good move, trying to get in on these dark squares at some point. But let's investigate a little more. Knight e5, and apparently there is a perpetual check here, is it? Knight takes d4 check. Wow, look at that. Ah, because of the queen e4 check skewer. So king g4. Knight f6 check. Holy crap. Look at that. Who's going to find that? Knight f6 check, just leaving the bishop hanging. King takes. Queen h5 check. King g3. Queen takes h1. Queen c7 check. And now it's what? Jesus. Several perpetual checks here too. These massive complications is why actually I don't use Stockfish, because it's so deep what it sees. It's not very applicable for human chess. Like white can give a perpetual here apparently. And there's a mate in 9 if you go king h7. Who would think, right? How's that go? g6 check, king h8, g7 check, king takes g7, knight f5 check, king g6. Look at this. And that's a mate. Can you believe that? And this is why we use engines like Roderick Karpov and all that, because you have to be superhuman to see this stuff. We want to see games that are human-like, things that we can relate to. That type of complications, like if what was that line back here? Firstly, this ridiculous line with knight takes d4 and black sees everything. King g4, knight f6 check, leaving the bishop hanging. King takes, queen check, king g3, queen takes, and then white goes check, king here. check. And then black can't play king h7 because it's mate in 9, this ridiculous checkmate here. Okay, so that rook f8 move that I said that I was expecting it leads to a draw most likely. So rook b5 is also leading to a draw. Okay, queen takes. During the game, Karpov thought he was completely winning, and what's his name? Krita thought he was completely losing, but Stockfish seemed to see a draw in all variations because he's God, right? Queen takes g5, bishop f4, queen g6. So we all thought that white was winning here. Well, I was a bit suspicious because of all those black pieces around the white king, but I actually had some fears that white's just going to get mated somehow. But especially after queen h7 check, knight g7, knight g3, takes. I remember this. Yeah, and the problem here, guys, is that there's a rook and a queen very close to the white king, to the white king, and the white queen is very far away. I mean, she has some checking ideas, but she's very far away from her king, and so she can't provide any protection. And that's why it was so easy to get a perpetual check. That's why, if you're attacking, but your opponent has counterplay, you want to keep your king safe as well. And so check here, and Karpov grabbed this pawn, and Krita found the forced draw by perpetual check here. Krita has seen some amazingly long line after queen g5 again. Queen g5 saying it's a forced draw. That's some more stuff that no human would ever play, but Krita's actual move is very realistic. Rook takes f2 check, just removing the main defender of the king, so there's an easy perpetual check. If black had more pieces close by, it would be a win for black, but since he doesn't, as we can see, this knight, which is fairly close by, is dominated by the bishop. So the only piece attacking is the queen, which means all that he can possibly have is a perpetual check, because a queen can never mate alone. So this was a threefold repetition, and it was a draw. So interesting game. A lot of positional maneuvering in this game. The only main mistakes that we've seen was Krita's missing that f6 idea, which was only slightly, it turned out only slightly better for white anyway. And Karpov's probably being a bit too ambitious on the queen side, leaving his king to defend itself. Probably a draw is a fair result, don't you think? Okay, so let's see what happened in game 3 now. I'll see you in game 3.